I'm going to move to Mr. Simonet. We had him at first, but we lost him. I think we have him back. Mr. Simonet.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I apologize for the computer issues. Technology isn't always your friend. This is a topic that's near and dear to me. I'm a first-generation American. My family is from Haiti. My mother and my father came over to the United States with a very, very clear purpose, and that was to provide a life that didn't exist for me and my siblings when they were back at their home. My parents, my mother lived in Laguna on an island, and her experience when coming over to this country was very different. And she believed in just putting up and accepting, because it no matter what, the opportunities in this country were always going to be better than where we were coming from, potentially. I will say that I am a benefactor of that. I run a successful business. I have a great family. We've been very, very fortunate. I've worked hard to be successful and put myself in a place where I can be a part of this panel and do other great things and invoke change within the industry that I work in as a financial provider, as a financial services provider. But that doesn't mean that I'm immune or separate from the issues that are facing this nation altogether. I am still a Black man. I still take these things personally. When you see someone who passes away on television, it does create a visceral reaction, and is creating a visceral reaction now. But I have to respectfully disagree with that. This is the first time that many people of this generation are seeing this. I've had personal friends and family. You've had personal friends and family, if you have people of color that you know of that has had this experience. I've had the conversation about how to interact with police, eyes front, lights on, don't touch anything, keep your hands as high. And we have seen time and again examples of those lessons that are taught to us as people of color, and even still shot. Philando Castillo, licensed gun holder, shot. My friend Manuel Loggins in California, out walking with his daughters, shot and killed. This gentleman, George Floyd, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, killed. Sandra Bland, on and on and on. We can go all the way back to Rodney King. We can go even further than that, and just take a look at our history and the roots of our policing system, especially here in the South. And what's important about this is the awareness that this issue has created. Because it was real, it was raw, it was visceral, it has created a direct emotional impact across not just people of color who have been screaming about this for eons, right? Martin Luther King literally said, one of the things that we want to work on is to stop the atrocities of police brutality. That was back in 1963. Mm-hmm. And here we are in 2020, still having this conversation. This is not new. This is not something that we weren't aware of. In terms of systemic issues, there are systemic issues, and we can take a look at the history of Austin, between East Austin and West Austin. Fortunately, Kyle has been a city that has been, in my opinion, very inclusive. But there has been a time in our history where that was not always the case. And Buda, Antioch Colony, Old Black Colony Road, which is right up the road from here, where there was a history, and that's important for us as local citizens to be aware of. And if we take a look at statistics between interactions between whites and people of color with police officers, there's a huge disparagement between how the risk and the severity of police officer interaction with people of color versus Caucasians. And we can see that by taking a look at statistics from the Bureau of Justice and taking a look at how they're looking at police officer interactions versus traditional black on black crime or white on white crime. The likelihood of an African American to have a violent encounter with a police officer is 3 times that of a Caucasian. that means that there is an issue. That means that there is some part of training, some type of experience that says that if we see a person of color, or it may not be color, it may be the scenario, the likelihood of the fact that in Black and brown communities, there are more police officers in Black communities than there are in white communities. The fact that more Black and brown people are arrested for minor offenses than whites. The fact that Black people have a higher death rate with police officer interactions than whites, even though white on white crime, Black on Black crime, brown on brown crime, those statistics tend to stay the same, right, within the races. So if we're talking about awareness and talking about bringing to the forefront change, we can't ignore the fact that over the last 50 to 60 years, since the change of the Jim Crow South, we have still consistently seen issues of not just police brutality, but economic inequality, situations where in this country, only 10% of the Fortune 500 boards are made up of people of color, of Black people, roughly 15 to 20% of that of men and women across the board. When we take a look at this current administration, where there is only one person of color, one Black man on the president's cabinet, that's a position of leadership. That's institutional. That's systemic. That's at the very, very top, and we're not seeing representation. We have not had in administrations this low a representation since the first Bush was president in 1989. So when we take a look at where we are now and saying that and bringing awareness to the issue that we're facing now, it's not just police. And I agree that Chief Barnett and our police department is doing the best they can. And I do believe that for most police officers, their intentions are positive, good. Their interactions are meant to be positive. They really are. But at the same time, I can say that most Black people don't intend to say that they don't trust the police. They don't want to be fearful of police. We don't seek out that conflict, but we've created an environment, we've created a society where there is an expectation of it. So much so that comedians literally joke about this year over year over year over year over year. It is not new. The visceral reaction that we've had now was because it was so cold and it was so callous. But we then had another shooting the following week. So when we say that awareness is not enough, and when we say that, is there change? Is this a moment of change? Yes, there is. There's a lot more people participating, but do we think that there's going to be big change? I must say, I have to be honest with you, and I am coming from a person of color and a person of color and privilege to say that it's incremental at best. And we can't be blind to that past to think that all of the interactions that we're having now are going to lead to a significantly positive outcome moving forward. What we can do is we can hope that this dialogue continues so that both the community and the people that are in power understand that representation is the most effective way to lead to change, right? The population, the leadership of our towns, our infrastructure, our teaching apparatus needs to reflect the community. And when it does not, you do not get change. I am confident that this conversation is going to lead to great movements forward. And I know this because yesterday, last night, I sat down with a gentleman who I've known for a while. We weren't particularly close. We normally share a beer or two together. But he was fuming, and I could tell that there was something on his mind, and he was waiting to ask this question. And every Black person in that room, every Black person listening, who's interact with their white friends, or who've been in a professional environment where you walked in and you were the only person of color, and you had to be the person to go ahead and be the ambassador for your race, has had the question come up, hey, as a black man, do you really think it's that much of an issue? Yes. And then immediately the reaction, well, I just don't see it that way, or I disagree, or maybe it's in the community. Maybe it's black on black crime. Yes, crime is an issue within communities of color, so it's the same thing in white communities. I think or we would have the conversation where, hey, you've been successful. Why can't they follow your example? Yes, I've been successful, but that was with hard work, determination, and a whole lot of luck. You know, I understand what it's like to struggle and be in that position. Most people of color do. White people do as well. Caucasians also have worked hard and have had their struggles. Where the difference is in the opportunities that come after that, right? The opportunities of leadership, the opportunities of promotion. There is not a history of situations like the Tuskegee experiment where 40 years of black men were injected with syphilis and not told and denied treatment so that they can be researched. There's not a history of Henrietta Lacks where her cancer cells were taken from her and used over and over without any permission from her family, without any acceptance from her family, without any of these scenarios to discuss that. There's been a history of beatings. Rodney King was beaten to within an inch of his life, and those police officers got away scot-free. Today, we are seeing a direct and emotional reaction where the police officers, yes, thank goodness, are being the bad apples are being pulled out, but you can only say that there's a bad apple so much before you say that we may need to replant the orchard. And I think what's important here is that we have that conversation, get to the root of our leadership, get into the interactions with the community, and help each other not just understand and talk past each other about where these issues are, but truly make sure that we are putting in concrete guidelines and concrete actions that reduce that impact. When you add more police into a community, oftentimes crimes may go up in that area. If a majority of interactions with police officers are with people of color, that may mean that you may need to have police officers readdress what they're looking for when they're seeing a traffic light, a pulled out traffic light, or how they're going to interact in that conversation, because yes, it's terrifying. I would be terrified to get pulled over right now. Well, not here locally. I'm known here in town, right? But if I'm driving out to Houston, or if I have to drive past Vidor, Texas, would it be a good idea for me to stop if I need to get gas?
Mr.
Should I
Simonet.
worry about my life in that scenario? Point is this. Awareness is not just a conversation. It's concrete changes and understanding that there is systemic issues that need to be addressed. Part of that is leadership and having your leadership actually look like the community that you're in, and putting forth an agenda that allows for an open and honest discussion about the things that we're afraid to talk about, which include race and include mistakes done on both sides, and hopefully pushing past those issues in due time.
Thank you, Mr. Simonet. Lot to definitely think about and unpack on that one.